Good morning, Irresistible. It is an honor to be with you guys on Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all of you guys who are fathers and those of you who are fathers in the church, like you've heard before. It doesn't make any difference if you've got children or not. You are a father to some of these kids who maybe don't have that kind of an example, or maybe they just need a godly example of what a father is. So I applaud all of you guys, those of you especially who are raising children. It is not a difficult job. I mean, it is a difficult job. It's not an easy job. It's not a difficult job. I just worked all the time and let her do it. That's all that was me. Hi, Irresistible. I mean, you're not irresistible, but you might be YouTube. I'm Les Farley. I don't know what's going on this morning. My wife, Grace, and I are the founding and senior pastors of this place, and we are honored to have all of you in the seats, all of you watching online. We have some impromptu travelers this morning. James and Dee were planning on being with us today, I guess, but their flight from out west got rerouted to Orlando, and they might be able to come home tomorrow. They're not sure yet, so enjoy Orlando. I mean, it's probably warmer there than it is here. Couple of quick things. You've heard me say this time and time again. All of the notes and the scriptures and some of the quotes that I've got are going to be on the screen behind me. Those of you online, you can find those on the Bible app. You can go to the Bible app in the Events tab, search for Irresistible, search for today's date. That's what I saved them under. Or the easiest thing that you can do is go to Irresistible's Facebook page and click the link that I put on at 7 o'clock this morning. It went active at 9. You can download the entire message, the notes. You can add your own study stuff to it. And you'll almost get the full effect of what's going on, except for the behind-the-scenes things. So, last week we began a new series that I called Ungentlemanly Warfare. I guess it says something for me to be able to do something with a title like that and talk about a few of the things that I talked about. And I got no complaints from you folks online. So you're either not watching, you're not paying attention, or I finally got to you and you agree. I'm not sure. But just like Carolee said, we need men. We need men in the church, not just in the individual churches, but the church itself as a whole needs to have godly examples of men for not just children to grow up and look at, but that's true, but we need to have it for all of us. All of us need to be able to, and it talks about, in the Bible several times, or at least one place where iron sharpens iron. That's what men work together at. And I don't know if you ever really have considered that, but iron sharpening iron is not an easy process. It creates friction, it creates heat, but it creates in the end a sharpness that you just can't do away with. And that's what we do with each other men. We are warriors. That's what we studied last week. We did some definitions to kind of kick everything off. And the one thing that I don't remember if I said, but one thing I think I need to make apparent is there is no age limit to being a warrior. I think I did mention we know some children who are warriors, but I know some very old folks that have not lost a step, buddy. They are on it. And the mental and the spiritual and even the emotional preparation that you have to be a warrior is something that you can't take for granted. It is a process. It takes some time. So today I want to get in a little bit deeper onto that side of it, and this one's called Get a Grip. You're going to have to get a grip on the fact that you are a warrior. Male, female, young, old, boy, girl, doesn't make any difference. You are a warrior for God. So Heavenly Father, thank you and praise you for the people that you've given us to talk to. Lord, I just praise you and thank you for the safety that you kept all of our military in yesterday, throughout the parades and throughout all of the different police additions and associations that they've got throughout the country. And I give you praise, Father, that this is going to be the time that you can not only bring this country back to you, but you can bring the church back to you. And we give you praise for it, Father, in Jesus' name. So, being a warrior is not a one-size-fits-all definition. A warrior is someone who is engaged in conflict, but it doesn't make any difference what your personality is. It doesn't make any difference, again, whether you're male or female, young or old. Most of the time, and I would maybe say all of the time, being a warrior is not a big flashy or a charismatic type of a thing. A lot of times you see warriors and they're the quiet ones. And my family always taught me, be cautious of them quiet ones. I was never quiet. I've always been loud. I was one of the smaller of the boys, so I had to be loud to be seen. But the one thing that you can always say, if you look at, and even if you look at the parade yesterday and look at the different uniforms from all the different aspects of the Army in its 250 years, there's one thing about them that you can all say. Those people were rock solid, man, when they came out on that. And there wasn't enough, but there was enough, because there was a whole lot more going on in the background than most of us are aware of. Warriors are usually pretty much at ease with who they are. They know that they've been called to do something, and they know that they're not going to be liked by everybody, but they also know that they're doing something that God's told them to do or called them to do, and especially when we're talking about warriors in the church. Now, warriors are not fearless, but they are courageous. There's a difference. You know, John Wayne once made a famous statement and said, courage is being afraid and saddling up anyway. And I will guarantee you, after some of the talks I have with my father-in-law, that you're afraid when that stuff's going on, but you do it anyway because that is who you are. That's what you're trained to do. Warriors can even doubt sometimes, but they never ever quit. Warriors are warriors all the time, and there's no age limit, like I said. Being a warrior is a matter of spirit. When your spirit is in tune with God, the warrior side of you is what people may not see on a normal day-to-day basis. But I will guarantee you, if you get your spirit in tune with what God's saying and what God does, you're going to notice some differences in some people when you see them out in public and when you see them in the stores. And I almost will guarantee you that a lot of those guys that are staying back and are being really quiet and watching, those are warriors. And they're protecting somebody or everybody. And that's just the way they are. And we went on a vacation with Steve and Britt this year, went on a cruise. And the worst part of the entire cruise for me was they always gave me the seat with my back to the room. I wanted to be back against the wall where I could watch the whole room, but you kind of had to think that maybe some of these folks had that all in hand, but I made up for it by eating. The spiritual DNA of a warrior requires that when they take a stand, when they join the struggle between right and wrong, they understand that sacrifice is necessary. But they also know that sacrifice is the only route to victory. When you have a group of people who are trained to be warriors, you know, they know that at any given time, one of them may not make it home, but they do it because that's who they are. They're warriors. And I'm happy to have someone in the White House that isn't looking for wars, but looking to end wars. And there's my political statement for you. Doesn't mean we're not going to send people out, but I think that sending people out is going to be a whole different kind of a decision now. And I hope that it gets to the point where we don't have to send them out. But I've read the end of the book, and I think that we're going to be in battles for quite a while. There are thousands of warrior causes that need us in the church. We're not talking about the military now. We're talking about the warriors, the spiritual warriors. There are causes that need us to step up, step out, be involved. You don't have to look too far. You can still look at the stats from all of the innocent babies that are being killed due to abortion. Still happening. Some people say it's a right, but I can't believe that murder's a right. There are school boards that need warriors. Have you seen some of the videos from these whacked out school boards that are around the country? And it ain't just around the country. We got some weirdos around here. How about local government? Well, I'm a Christian. I can't be in local government. Who do you think started this whole shooting match? Who started the United States? A whole bunch of Christians. And they never failed to serve. How about some moral guidance for kids? Just in classes and just in maybe just in your neighborhood. Who knows? All you really have to do is pick one or two and get in the fight. That's really all that has to happen. And guys, I know we're busy and I know we're tired, but we'll sleep when we get there. Sleep is overrated. Just ask my dog. Oh, he sleeps. Yeah. Unless you're setting off fireworks in the neighborhood. There was a gentleman named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. There's a movie about him that's on. I think it was at Angel Studios or something had that on. Extremely interesting Christian, Nazi Christian, but he stood up to the Nazi Party. And one of the things he said right before he was executed was not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act. And all that means is if you don't speak up, you just made your opinion known. If you don't do something, you just did something. And if you didn't do something to help the situation, you did the exact opposite of that. We know that things need set right, warriors, so stop expecting somebody else to do it and just get out and do it. Get out and help. Volunteer. That is my commercial for this message, so let's go on. Of all the, I couldn't say that though because it's already been taken. Of all the great warrior examples that you can see in the Bible, and the kids are taught those from the very beginning. We taught children's class, and all of those, the great warriors of especially Hebrew times, are all back in there. But probably the greatest one, and I don't think you can really argue the point with me, but probably the greatest warrior of all was Jesus Christ. I mean, after all, he was God. I mean, you can't follow that well, but he did give us an example of some things to do. But what I want to do this week and some of next week is to look at somebody else in the Bible, in the left half, that embodies a warrior, that tells us and shows us by his example who a warrior is, what a warrior is. This guy wasn't ageless, but it sure seems like it when you read through some of the things that he did and how long he fought for Israel. I'm going to talk about Joshua's battle buddy, Caleb. Not a name we think about too often, but it's there. A little early on that, but that's okay. Caleb, in Near Eastern languages, the name Caleb means dog. That's all it means. And people would think, well, that's not very complimentary to name your kid dog. But it's not the word dog from the Near Eastern, it's the actual meaning in the Hebrew that we have to look at. In the Hebrew, the intention was to reflect loyalty and faithfulness, especially to someone's master. So when you dedicated your child to God and you called them Caleb, you were saying, this is my forever servant to God, and he will be faithful to him his entire life. And it's interesting that all those Near Eastern languages try to reverse that, to make you think that it's a bad thing to name your kid dog. The intention was followed through in Caleb's life by seeing that by the time he ended his life, he had never, ever failed to fight, and he had never, ever lost a fight, never surrendered his entire life. And when you think about that, think about the fact that these guys lived a lot longer than what most people in those days, because Caleb was from the generation that all died in the wilderness. But because Caleb was faithful to God, God allowed him and Joshua to live. We're going to go back into, and we're not going to hit a lot of actual scripture. We're going to find some here in just a few minutes. But we're going to start in Numbers chapter 13. And it's a story of Moses trying to recruit a special ops team to go in and take a look at Canaan. Canaan is the promised land. Canaan is where God said, I've reserved this for you. And when they got to the border of Canaan, guess what they found? People lived there. It was occupied territory. So Moses is going to send out one person from each of the 12 tribes. They're going to spy out the land. You know the story, right? They're going to spy out the land. They go into the land and they find out that there are grapes as big as watermelons, watermelons as big as donkeys, donkeys as big as elephants. And oh, yes, and there's this whole place over there that has giants. No wonder the fruit was so big. 12 soldiers went out saying, we'll go tell you what we see. We'll come back and tell you. 12 went out saying, this is the promised land. 10 came back saying, ooh, did you see those dudes? 2, Joshua and Caleb said, let's just go take it. I mean, in the middle of this entire public display of the most fearsome warriors of each tribe shaking in their sandals, saying, we can't hope to win. And then you got 2 guys. Now, these were not kids. These were 40-year-old men who were saying, let's just go take it. God's already given it to us. And guess who the Democratic leadership decided to follow? The scaredy cats. They followed and said, we're going to side with them. And you know, God was so happy about it, he said, you're all going to die. That's the way you're going to be and not believe me. Nobody gets to go in. You're all going to die. Except for these 2 guys. I like them. They have a mind after my own mind, a heart after my own heart. As a matter of fact, God talked about Caleb and gave him a title that he had only ever before given to Moses. Numbers 14:24 says, my servant, Caleb, the faithful one, has a different attitude. He believes me. He's completely different from these losers. So he gets to go in. My servant. That's exactly what Caleb's name meant. He was going to be faithful. He was going to be a servant. He was going to be there. See, Caleb was an Iron Man centuries before there was a Cal Ripken or a Tony Stark. Sometimes I like to throw them out just to see who knows, and everybody went. And I think they knew Tony Stark. They didn't know Cal Ripken. That was weird. All right, never mind. All right, so I'm not going to talk about and not going to make light of any of the rest of these guys. I mean, we got Abraham, Moses, Joshua, David. All of these guys were great warriors. But I want you to see something about Caleb, because this was a time when they had just come out of slavery in Egypt. And Caleb was exactly what his name implies. 3,500 plus year old account in the Bible to tell us what we need to do today, to show us how we need to be warriors today. More on that next week. We'll get into the details of it, but I want to finish our time today just kind of giving you an overview of a conversation. We're going to be a fly on the wall, maybe a fly on the rock. I guess they were out in the middle of the desert, but a fly somewhere, flying or not flying, maybe a sitting, so it'd be a sit, watching. Too fast? Wait for it to come around. We want to hear this story from their perspective, and luckily, somebody was there writing this down. Now, it was obvious. You're talking about Joshua and Caleb getting together the night before. This is 45 years after the rest of these people forgot or refused to go in. 45 years later, they've been in battle 40 years. Moses is dead. Joshua is the commander. 5 years they've been fighting. 5 years they've wiped out all of the opposition in Canaan. The promised land is within reach. The night before the final battle, these 2 old warriors sit down around a campfire and begin to sharpen each other. Iron sharpening iron. Recalling the different things that had happened, the things that were undone yet, things that still needed to happen. They were out of step with most of Israel. I mean, the Israel that died in the desert, all those people would rather just die in the desert or go back to Israel, or go back to Egypt and be in slavery again. They didn't have the heart for the battle. They wandering around for 40 years, complaining about every little thing. I mean, read some of the accounts of the time that they were in the desert. Moses! Moses! Parents, you know that sound, right? Dad, you know that sound. He's picking on me. He's touching me. I don't like manna. I'm sick of quail. You know how many quail there had to be to feed 1.5 million people? Anyhow, my head just went there. Never mind. This entire nation that ended up dying in the desert expected everyone, Moses especially, to wait on every little whim and desire that they had. Does this sound familiar yet? People, if I could be so bold, and I can because I got the microphone, these guys are so close to where we are in the United States right now. Everybody thinks that if I whine about something long enough and loud enough, everybody will let me do it and agree with it. We got people today. To me, it's sad because we have people. I'm just going to say it. We got people today that don't think of Islam for what Islam is. Islam is here to kill us. It's here to come overtake the world. And if they ever get a good foothold in this country, you're talking civil war in every household. You're talking about you better have something to protect yourself with. People refuse to see that because they've been sold on this idea that it is a religion of peace. But I will tell you, I've read enough of the Quran to tell you that it is a book of war, and it is a religion of annihilation. Doesn't mean I don't have people that I talk to that profess that. But I've always got my eye on them. People are reluctant today to realize that anyone who's here illegally shouldn't be here. And I'll just say that right flat out. You try going to any country and do some of the things that are happening here. We've been to Mexico twice in the last year. The second time on the cruise ship was easy. The first time going through one of the gates, they questioned us about why we wanted in. And then I almost didn't get home because I forgot. But we didn't have passports. Then I forgot my driver's license. I didn't forget it. I forgot what pocket I put it in. So I handed the border guard my concealed carry permit. Wrong thing to do if you ever get on that side of the border. It is not impressive to them. Anyhow, let's get back to, we're going to fast forward from Numbers 14 and go all the way into Joshua 14. Joshua 14, Canaan, like I said, is already mostly under Israel's control. They've been battling for 5 years. They've been having win after win after win after win. And finally, we're out to the point where there's one unconquered realm. The mountains, the hills. Joshua and Caleb sitting around the campfire the night before. They've been friends for 45 years at this point, maybe before that. Who knows? And in this area, several verses here in Joshua 14, we're going to go over 5 things, 5 phrases that they said, Caleb especially, that maybe will give us some light to what a warrior's soul looks like. Joshua 14:6, the middle part of that. Caleb said to Joshua, "Remember what the Lord said." Now, if you're going to start anywhere, that's a good place to start. Remember what God said. You can do that today. When you get into trouble, you can remember what God said. You can get in your Bible and find the promise and remember what God said. Caleb's relating the current situation, getting ready to go in to do this battle, with the things that God's already said. The things that he's already promised and come through on. Remember what God said to Moses. Remember. In more modern times, you see this militarily. One of the first ones that I ever heard about and read about, and the movie didn't do him justice, but George Patton in World War II was a student of history. And he won so many battles because he studied the battles that had happened in those places before and didn't make those mistakes again. So when Joshua or Caleb says, remember what God's already said, he's telling Joshua, this is the leader of the nation. This would be like you just kind of cozy up on the south lawn to President Trump and say, hey, you remember when Elon told you? Remember what the Lord already said. He's already talked about where we are right now. Back when Moses was alive, the Lord said to Moses, see the present reality in our lives. Use the lens of history. Don't make the same mistake twice. The last part of that one, Caleb said to Joshua, remember what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God. And look at these 4 words, about you and me. So all that time, 45 years ago, it's still fresh in Caleb's memory. And he's reminding the president of the country, remember what he said about you and me. This is what God said about you and me. Not just a casual phrase. Remember, this is what you're supposed to remember. What did God say we would do now? And there again, there's where your promises are. Your promises, and we'll cover a bunch of those next week. Those promises are there for you to not only be a warrior, but to be a successful and a victorious warrior in all the things that Satan's trying to do to you. 4 little words. From the time that Caleb and Joshua were first selected to be on that recon group, they were kindred spirits, and you could tell because they both said the same thing. Let's just go take it now. Enough of this wandering around stuff. Let's go do it. 45 years down the road. And Caleb says, brother, it's still just you and me. We're going to get this done. We know each other better than anybody else knows us. We have a track record of being loyal to each other, of seeing the same things that the other one sees. We've faced unimaginable difficulties. We've got a lifetime of battlefield faithfulness. And there's a world of reality and commitment behind the words that he said, what God said about you and me. Remember that. That camaraderie only comes from time shared in battle. Now, it can be developed even in the church today, but it only comes when we get together as men and we battle some of the things that we have to face, some of the things coming against our families. Moving on, the third thing, Joshua 14, the middle part of verse 7, or very end of verse 7, I guess, maybe somewhere in. Caleb's reminding Joshua, like Joshua doesn't remember this. I mean, I don't know, did he not? But Caleb said, I was only 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me to spy out the land. And I brought back word to him as it was in my heart. That phrase is an amazing phrase in the Hebrew. That phrase says, I believe what the Lord told us to do. I am not reporting what I saw. I'm reporting what God stuck in my heart and my spirit while we were out there, that this is our land. That's what he brought back. That was a report that would cause the nation of Israel to not have to wander and die off. Caleb didn't have to look with his natural eyesight. He saw it with his spirit. He saw that from the moment God talked to him about it 45 years ago when he was 40 years old. You know, there's an old song we used to sing, the open the eyes of my, I guess we still do, open the eyes of my heart. That's what this phrase is talking about. The eyes of your heart is your spirit. So when God speaks something in your spirit, you're not looking with your natural eyes. You're looking with your spiritual eyes, the eyes of your heart. There were physical realities, yes. There was fruit so big we couldn't hardly carry it home. There were giants. These were the ones that were talked about, the sons of Anak. These were ones that had women who had mated with fallen angels. These were fearsome warriors. But Caleb believed the vision that God had given him and his buddy Joshua about the promised land. It became for him an outcome that was already settled, an outcome that he wasn't doubting for one moment. Caleb believes something, a big picture. The fourth phrase, Joshua 14, last part of verse 8. He's talking about these guys that went in to spy out the land. He said, my brothers who went with me frightened the people from entering the promised land. These people that came back, the 10, frightened the rest of the nation so that they wouldn't get into the promised land. And for my part, Caleb said, I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. For my part. That is a phrase that just really hit my spirit hard. For my part, I wholeheartedly followed the Lord. I fail at that way too many times, but for my part, I want to wholeheartedly follow what he says to do. The verbiage, wholeheartedly, wasn't just something about following somebody blindly. It's a kind of following that carries with it a focused intensity. Way beyond the casual, yeah, sure, I'll go. I mean, we hear that, right? I don't want to, but yeah, I'll go. Caleb's commitment to God, to God's word, and to God's principles is total. And he's letting Joshua know, I haven't given up. I'm 85, think about it, 85 years old, and I'm fixing to go whoop up on some giants. And by the way, that's the same God our founding fathers spoke about in the Declaration of Independence. God has not changed. And the call on your life has not changed either. Conversation's winding down. Caleb states the obvious, something they both know before they ever started the conversation. The only place left to conquer is where the giants live, up in the hills. Joshua 14, verse 12. I'm going to read the whole thing, I think, instead of just the end of it. It said, so give me the hill country that the Lord promised me. He knows what's in the hill country, but give it to me. Tell me that's my land. I've got something to fight for now. You will remember that as scouts we found the descendants of Anak living there in great walled towns. And here's the line, but if the Lord is with me, I will drive them out of the land, just like God said. If the Lord is with me is not depression. It was just him saying, it's battle. Anything can happen. I'm 85 years old. But if God's with me, I'm going to drive them out. And that was a very Jewish mindset. Everything that happened, they believe happened because it was God's will. If Caleb had gone in there and lost and died, that was God's will. Nobody cried about it. I mean, they cried, but nobody whined to God about why he allowed that to happen. But he said, if God is with me, this God that I'm telling you about, if he truly with me, I'm coming out the other side with some big cities, big houses. Caleb understood two things that we probably should study more. God's sovereignty and our human responsibility. Too many times I have to talk to people who say, well, why would God allow this? Well, you know, pumpkin, you have some responsibility in what happens to you. How's your mouth? How's your heart? How's your attitude? How's your mind? You renewing it with the Word of God? Or you spend your time catching up on all the last several seasons of Walking Dead? What is it? How's your mind? Caleb wasn't being smug. He wasn't being cute. I mean, a man's 85 years old. The time for cuteness is gone. Caleb is saying, I want it. God promised it. It's time I get it. It's time you just let me go take it. Caleb had an unquenchable optimism, but he was completely surrendered to God's plan. And whichever way it happened, He did everything he could possibly do. Now, we probably know the rest of that story. We won't get into it this week. We'll get into some details next week. I believe that Caleb's strength came from believing God. I believe that at 85 years old, most people today think that they're well past dead. I know people my age that look at me like, how can you be 70? I just hung around for 70 years. And it happened. Age, when God's involved, ain't no big deal. The hills, in Caleb's mind, the hills were his. That was where his house was going to be. God had already said so. So there's no argument. Next week, I'm going to come right back to those 5 things, those same scriptures. And what we want to do is take those and look at the characteristics that Caleb exhibited when he said those things. And it's called the 5 key elements of warriors for next week. 5 key elements out of what we just read. We're going to go a little bit deeper into them, and we're going to see what maybe we still need to develop inside us to be warriors today. And again, it's a man series, but it's for everybody. Women, children can be warriors. I appreciate all of you guys being here. YouTube, I appreciate you. And they keep throwing different people at me all the time. But Elder Destry is coming up now. He's leaving the media table. So those of you that have never seen anything but the top of his head, this is Destry, one of our elders and one of our media people. And for you online, I will see you next week. And I'm trying to walk behind you. Stop moving.
So, with everything we just learned, if you didn't know before, you now know. Caleb had already thrown his lot. He'd cast it with God. He knew that no matter what happened in his life, he was with God. So, he knew every single battle he went into, no matter what, it had already been won. It didn't matter how big the giant standing in front of him was, he knew the God standing beside him. Being a Christian doesn't mean anything's going to be easy. Doesn't necessarily mean everything you're going to do is going to win. Because if God's telling you to go over here and you say, I'm going to go fight this battle because this one looks more fun, that doesn't mean that battle's going to go the way you want it to go. Being that today's Father's Day, I want to say thank you to all the people that have been a mentor to others. Thank you for stepping up when you did not have to. Any man can be a father. Any man can father a child. It takes someone special to step into fatherhood and take responsibility for those that look up to you. So cast your fears, your anxieties on him and stand up and be present for every battle you're called to. YouTube, thank you and have a great week.